Hi everyone, in this video I want to show a game between Deac Bogdan Daniel, youngest grandmaster from Romania, and Ravi Haria, international master from England. The game was played in Tradewise Gibraltar chess tournament from 2018 round 6. Let's see the game. White started with d4 and black replied with e6, a valid pawn move allowing the darker bishop to develop on f8, a3 diagonal. Knight to f3, knight to f6, c4, d5, placing a pawn in the center, knight to c3, developing the knight, putting pressure on d5 pawn, and bishop to b4. We have the Nimzo-Indian defense, Ragozin Variation, and here white took on d5, releasing the central tension. Usually it's better to keep the tension between pieces, unless it gives a concrete advantage. He takes on d5, and in this case white helped black to develop his light square bishop. In this position, white developed the knights before the bishop, as Lasker mentioned this rule a long time ago. Knights on the initial position are passive, while the bishops control many squares from their initial position. White continued with the development of his dark square bishop to g5 on the most forward square in black camp, pinning the knight. Knight Bd7, developing and protecting the knight. Queen to c2, defending, intending to take with the queen on c3 if black takes the knight. Usually in an opening, moving the queen is the last thing to do. Better was to continue the development of his other bishop from s1 by playing e3 and bishop to d3, c5 attacking the center, allowing the queen to come to a5 to put pressure on the knight from c3, g3. He wants to develop the bishop on the long diagonal, h6, attacking the bishop, bishop takes on f6, knight takes on f6, bishop to g2, followed by short castle. The most important thing of castling, beside putting the king to safety, is bringing the rook into the game. White does the same, and with this move he finishes opening. His king is safe, rooks are connected, and all other pieces are developed. Black needs two more moves to finish his opening, to move the light square bishop and the queen. c4, gaining some space, but d5 pawn is a weak backward pawn that cannot be defended by other pawns, so it's a good target for white in the future. In the middle game, white needs to start an attack. The plan consists of two steps: find some targets to attack, and second, use your pieces to attack those targets. The easiest target are the weak pawns and weak squares located on the 5th and 6th ranks. If attacking moves are not working, white needs to improve his piece position or neutralize opponent pieces that are in his territory. In this position, black has a weak pawn on d5 that can be attacked by white one more time by moving the knight to e5. In the game, white attacked the bishop with a3. Bishop to e7, white insists of neutralizing opponent pieces that stand in his territory by playing b3. Better was to attack d5 with knight to e5. C takes on b3, queen takes on b3. White queen puts pressure on d5 pawn. In this position, the material situation is equal. Black has the bishop pair and the pawn majority on the queen side. White has a pawn majority on the king side. Black continue with rook to b8, defending the pawn, allowing the light square bishop to develop. Knight to e5, attacking for a third time d5 pawn, and bishop to e6, defending. For the moment, white has no attacking moves, so he needs to bring more pieces into the game. A good move for white would be rook f to c1, bringing the rook on an open file. In the game, white moved his centralized knight from e5 to d3. He wants to play knight to f4, attacking the bishop and the pawn, queen to a5. With this move, black finished his opening. His king is saved, rooks are connected, and all other pieces were developed. Also, the queen puts pressure on a3 pawn, knight to f4, and the rook f to d8. d5 pawn is defended 4 times, and white attacks the pawn one more time with e4. If black takes on e4, we'll have the following line: d takes on e4, knight takes on e6, f takes on e6, queen takes on e6 check, king to f8, knight takes on e4, bishop takes on d4, rook a to e1, queen takes on a3, knight takes on f6, bishop takes on f6, bishop to d5, threatening mate on f7, and black cannot defend f7 or g8 squares. Black has to give the exchange and take the bishop. Queen takes on d5, and in this position black cannot start pushing his pass pawns because white will double on the e file and mate black king. For example, if black continues with b5, rook to e6, a5, rook f2 e1, queen to b4, making room for the a pawn to advance, rook to d7, and if black continues with a4, he is mated with rook to e8, check, black has to take, and we have mate. In the game after e4, black attacked the knight from c3 with rook b to c8. The knight is attacked twice, and white moved away from the attack. Into b6, black wants to exchange queens, white takes the queen, a takes on b6, queens are exchanged, white has an isolated pawn on a3, and black has two double pawns on the b file. White continues his attack with e5, gaining some space. The d4 pawn cannot be attacked for the moment. Knight to h7. In an endgame, the pawn structure determines the plan. There are two main plans in an endgame. One, attack opponent weak pawns, and two, push your pass pawns. In this position, black weaknesses are the two double pawns from the b file and the one from d5. White can bring his rook from f1 and put pressure on these pawns. But in the game, white brought the other rook, leaving a3 pawn undefended. Rook to c2 entering the second rank, white took on b6, threatening to take the bishop with the knight, and after the pawn takes, he will grab a pawn. And in the game, the light square bishop goes forward, attacking the knight one more time. White has three options here to defend the knight, with rook to e1, take on b7, attacking the bishop, or the move chosen in the game, knight takes on d5. Black took the knight with the rook, white recaptured with the bishop, black takes the free knight, attacking the rook, rook takes on b7, attacking the bishop. Also, the bishop and the rook are looking at f7, weak pawn. Black took the rook, king recaptured, bishop takes on a3, bishop takes on f7 check, king to h8. White has two connected pass pawns. He is 3 pawns up for the piece. In the game, white played rook to b3, attacking the bishop, and black counter-attacked the other bishop with rook to c7, bishop to h5, moving away from the attack, rook to a7, defending the bishop, and white continued his plan of pushing his pass pawns with d5. Black brought his knight into the game, trying to stop pass pawns with knight to f8. Now the question is which pawn to push, the d pawn or the e pawn. Let's see the first option, to push e6 pawn. We would have e6, g6 attacking the bishop like in the game, and the king can come to g7, being closer to the pass pawns. Bishop to g4, h5, kicking the bishop again, bishop to h3, king to g7. We can also notice that the darker bishop is controlling d6 and e7 squares, so it's hard for white to push any of these pawns. If white tries to help the pawns with a rook to b6, trying to push d6, black king is near the pass pawns, he will take them. So after d6, bishop takes on d6, rook takes on d6, g5, trying to push g4, blocking the bishop, bishop to g2, king to e7, rook to b6, knight takes on e6. Black managed to take all the pawns, bishop to d5 attacking the knight, knight to c7. Black gave the piece back and won both white pass pawns. So pushing e6 in the initial position is not good for white. In the game, white pushed d6. Black attacked the bishop with g6, bishop to g4, rook to a8. Usually moves back are not good. f4, white pawn chain is pretty impressive. h5, attacking the bishop, bishop to f3, rook to h7. Black is waiting for white to push up his pawns, but white needs to help his pawn to go forward. And in the game he found the correct way to do it with rook to c3, intending to go to c7, knight to d7, rook to c8 check, king to g7, rook to c7. Black is forced to exchange rooks, rook takes, d takes on c7, white is one square from queening, knight to b6, controlling c8, but white bishop comes to b7, threatening to get a queen. h4, king to g2, h takes on g3, h takes on g3, g5, king to f3, g takes on a4, g takes on f4, king to f7, queen, knight takes on c8, bishop takes on c8. In this position, white is 2 connected pawns up. The plan is simple: push the passed pawns. But for this, the king needs to come in front of the pawns. In the game, black continue with bishop to f8, king to g4, bishop to h6, looking at f4 pawn. White king has to guard this pawn. He needs to bring the king in front of them. So we have king to f5, king to f8. For the moment, the king is tied up in the defense of the pawn, so the light square bishop can control some light squares around black king. King to e7, bishop to d5. All the squares in front of black king are controlled. King to f8, king to g4, king to e7, bishop to g4, bishop to g7. With this move, black allows white king to come forward. So this was not a good move from black side. King to g5. After this move, black resigned. A possible continuation would be bishop to f8, king to g6, king to e8, bishop to b5 check, king to e7, f5, intending to push, king to d8, f6, king to c7, e6, king to d6, king to f7, attacking the bishop, helping the pawn to queen, bishop to a6, e7, and white is getting a new queen. So this was the game between Deac Bogdan Daniel and Haria Ravi. I hope that you learned something from this game. Please watch other games from my channel, and if you like this video, click the like button and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.